Everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SportsTech Allstars Podcast. This is the last one I just recorded in our series focused on sustainability in sport and the role that tech and innovation plays in delivering sustainability in sport. The conversation I had was with Pierluigi Zacheo, who is an expert in this space. He's the founder of a company called MyStadium and has been consulting with sports entities such as Paris 2024, the NBA, Formula E, Extreme E, and various others. A true expert in the area of sustainability. Over the course of the conversation, we talk about what exactly sustainability in sport means today. What does creating a circular economy look like? What are the differences between shareholders and the stakeholders that we need to deal with when it comes to sustainability in sport? And also importantly, the role that tech plays, of course, and looking ahead, what can we expect in terms of innovation in this space? There's a lot to take away from the 30 minutes I spent with Pierluigi. Hope you find it interesting. Well, Pierluigi, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you making the time to talk to us more about sustainability in sport, and especially the role that innovation plays on this topic. It's not something that we speak a lot about on this podcast, but I like to do this, that we try to introduce new topics and forward-thinking topics, which is why sustainability in sport and the role that technology plays is our theme for this month. And when we came across your profile, we thought, who better than to talk about it, and somebody who spends so much time in this space. So that's a little preview to my listeners, but I want to hear more from you. Walk us through your own background about what kind of work you've been doing in this space and also what got you into it.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's a privilege to be able to share a little bit of who I am and what my work entails. So I always had a passion for sport and a keen interest in environmental and social issues. So that was coming really as a no-brainer in terms of what kind of career pathway I should have undertaken. And then I studied industrial engineering, and I started to deal a little bit more in depth with business management, strategic planning, outsources to gain a competitive advantage. And that's where I saw in sustainability one of these factors that could be used for achieving competitive advantage. So I started to sort of move a little bit sideways, because my forte has always been really developing strategic planning and management systems. And I started to delve more into how to develop a sustainability management system, how to integrate sustainability strategy into the overall business strategy. And again, this passion for sports, when I had to choose a sector where to work in, automatically drove me towards event and sport.
And you've spent, as I said, quite a bit of time. I think from what I can see, you founded your own company, MyStadium, in 2011, and you've probably been working in it since before then. You've got a top list of clients from Formula E to Extreme E and various others that you've worked with over this time. And I want to get into some of those projects and what exactly you have done. But first, I want to take one step back, because sustainability in business jargon or business parlance today is used in a lot of different ways. What exactly to you does sustainability in sport mean? And what types of sustainability are you really referring to here?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question, which gives me also the opportunity to try to give a little bit of clarity on what sustainability is and what sustainability is not. So I had to find my own definition of sustainability, and I studied quite a few different sectors as well, not only the economy, but also biology and science. And the best one I found, which I hope you and your listeners will like, is it's coming from an American economist, Danny Brownlee, who said that sustainability is the capacity to endure and how biological systems remain diverse and productive indefinitely. And I think that was, for me, really something that, when you listen to it and you think, wow, this is it. This is how really the planet has been around for 4 billion years, because it applies its own circular approach to things. Whereas if you think about the way we live, and especially the organizations which are profit-driven, they have a linear approach. So how do we bend that line and we turn it into a circle? It's really the kind of silver bullet that can move you from just focusing on creating shareholders value to encompassing also the stakeholder instances, needs, and expectations. So I think the best definition of sustainability, which could be applied to any organization, including, of course, sport organization, is this one, because, it really shifts the paradigm now and moves you from a shareholder-driven company to a stakeholder-driven company, as I said, but also how to embed purpose into your own scope.
Powerful stuff. So let's dive into that a bit more. Who are the stakeholders that we're talking about? Apart from, let's say, shareholders is just one of those, employees, customers in sports, that'll be fans. But then there are others as well who are part of the circle that we maybe don't spend too much time focusing on. The environmental agencies, social inclusivity, all these kind of topics. So who else do you include in the conversation when you're talking about sustainability?
Very, very good point. This is integral part of the work that I do with my clients. So we conduct a stakeholder mapping, try to identify all the categories, not all your people who have a stake in the sport organization or in the events that the sport organization organizes, but also people that might be impacted by it and don't have the ability or the opportunity to express their needs, their expectations, their concern with regard to the way the company is operating in a specific country, for example. So when we start working with my clients, one of the very first steps is we need to conduct this stakeholder mapping, where we list down, it could be partners, it could be sponsors, it could be the host city, it could be national, international, or even local authorities. It could be the communities, the business community, the local residents. It could be the supply chain, the local and the global supply chain. I mean, it's a quite vast set of stakeholders. There is media, for example, but media means lots of different stakeholder groups, because there are the local ones, or there are the bigger broadcasters. So it really varies, and it can encompass up to sometimes between 30, 40 different categories. And then what we do is that we try to identify all their needs, and also what is not realistically expressed by them, which is the expectations, and the different way of communicating with them and engaging with them. Because that's crucial in order to align your way of working with what these people do expect from you, from your event or from your sport organization, especially if you're claiming to be a sustainable company, a purpose-driven company. You need to walk your talk.
I really like the first definition that you gave at the start already, just about making sure that it continues indefinitely and building this circular system where all the various stakeholders that you just described are working together. So, I mean, not everybody will be 100% happy every time, but at least they see the value in being involved, or they see the value in participating in an event, in a sports game, or a large, let's say, event like an Olympics or a World Cup or something. So I think we've said, so basically the stakeholders also depend on a case by case. On a one single event, it might be different. On a larger tournament, it might be different. Maybe this is a good cue to go into some examples. Can you walk me through maybe one or two projects that you've worked on, so that we can kind of use it as a use case to really understand who are all the stakeholders, how you affected them or your work affected them? And then I want to later touch, I mean, we'll come to that, is the role that technology plays in this entire interaction. But maybe, just a couple of projects that you've worked on.
Yes. So you already mentioned Formula E. This is a project that I've been working on for the last 6 years. Actually, it's going to be 9 years in December. So it's the long-lasting project of mine. And that project is the really most comprehensive one, because I've done parts of work that I usually do with some clients and parts of work that I do with some other clients. So you can have the pure sustainability strategy development and implementation, which starts from conducting context analysis, materiality assessment, risk analysis, objectives, targets, and action plan definition, and then developing all the process and the procedure. This is really the more strategic side of the work that I do. And this is something that we have developed in Formula E. And it was very interesting to hear how you were talking about creating value, because one of the 4 pillars of the sustainability strategy of Formula E is called creating value through values. So how do you engage with your stakeholders, trying to bring opportunities for developing programs or initiatives or activations on site that they could benefit from, or we could mutually benefit from. And then there's the other part, which it's less known, which is all the part that revolves around operations. Many people don't realize the complexity and the level of workload that integrating sustainability into operations entails. So there is the development of waste management, the recycling process, how to put in place a policy for single-use plastic phase-out. How do you work with your supply chain in order to minimize their Scope 3 emissions? How do you work with all the local vendors to make sure that they use sustainable packaging? How do you work with them as well to make sure that they only bring on-site recyclable materials or materials that are going to not harm the environment? So there's a huge work that you have to do with event management, with venue operators, also with the local workforce that need to be trained, educated. So the big piece of work consists also in developing very clear and straightforward implementable guidelines so that they will know how they can do it. Because one of the biggest conundrums is, okay, you want me to be sustainable. How do I do that? So there is 2 parts. There is the most strategic high level, which has got, of course, different stakeholders, because you speak again with sponsors, you speak with investors, you speak with the C-level, you speak with the board, and from director level upwards, right? But then there's the how we're going to turn this into practice. And that cascades down to completely different kind of people, because you're going now from director downwards. So all the managers, all the coordinators, all the implementers, even the cleaning lady or the workforce that is going to move the blocks for the truck to be set up in the roads of Paris. So it's really a very, very broad spectrum of expertise. And with Formula E, again, it took me 9 years, of course, but we have covered all of that. But for example, for the NBA games in the EMEA region, that's what we're trying to do now. We're developing a sort of a strategic roadmap for integrating sustainability into the NBA games. And then one by one, trying to operationally make sure that these standards are implemented everywhere the NBA games will take place.
I find that fascinating. So you're obviously operating at 2 levels, as you said. One is to define the overall strategy, what kind of work we will be doing, and then to create an implementation strategy, which is how do we actually get this on ground. And I guess that also will involve a lot of continuous monitoring and making sure that you're improving and building on the projects that you have. What it also sounds like me, and by the way, before I come to my question, I should mention that one of the ways that we found your profile while we were looking was actually looking for people who are working in the Formula E ecosystem. Because in terms of the sports space, like they're the first, carbon neutral, one of the first entities, sports organizations to say they're carbon neutral. Within the motorsports world, which is a space that I love, of course, they are inherently, even any layperson from the outside will also say, hey, okay, so that's an environmentally friendly sports organization, or just a sport, right? Electric racing. So we wanted to speak to somebody who came from that space. So it's great to hear how you're able to go in there right from the start. As you said, 9 years ago. So you've been there a long time. What it also sounds to me like is that you can't do everything all at once, right? But you have to pick your projects. Okay, now we're going to work on waste management. Now we're going to work on reducing plastic usage. Now we're going to work on, I don't know, creating less waste around a track during movement of things. So it's not like you can go in on the first day and say, hey, we're going to solve all the problems of this event. I mean, that's also a ridiculous statement. But it's like incremental growth over the years. Is that fair to say that? Are there some projects that you started in year 1 which are still running? Or also are there some projects which, all of them, fantastic. Are there some projects that you ran for a short time and they just, okay, that was one purpose and they finished? Is that how it kind of goes?
I need to articulate it. All the preliminary work that I was talking about is to understand this species in which environment it's operating. And now you can make this species thrive. In order to make the species thrive, you need to understand what are the main competitors for food, What are the kind of dangers that the species might encounter? Climate change could be one of those. Fires, any sort of potential danger. And now you evaluate those risks in terms of priorities, and now you can turn some of these risks into opportunities potentially. So all the planning phase, for me, is the most important part of it. Once you have set that scene and you understand in which context your organization is operating, then it becomes almost automatic to define the list of priorities. And this is where I told you earlier, you develop this thing that I love, which is the objectives, target, and action plan. You start defining strategic objectives with a time frame of 3 to 5 years. Then you have for each objective 1 to 3 tactical targets, 1 to 2 years. And then you have an action plan for each and every target, which is operationally what we need to do and how we need to do it and who has to do it by when in order to achieve the target, which then enables me to achieve the objective, which enables me to minimize the risk, which enables me to maximize the opportunities and therefore tackle the sustainability issues that are relevant to the context in which we operate. So you see how iterative it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it could not be done in a linear way, in a one-off approach. And that's why my answer was none of them. All of them are continuously working into this iterative process that once you start it, it never stops. Because then it becomes ingrained in the culture of the organization. If I leave tomorrow Formula E, people will keep working exactly in the same way because now the processes, the procedures are there. They simply follow what's being built. They don't need anyone from the sustainability team anymore to be part of it. And that's what I want to tell you. This goes across all the departments. It becomes really the way the company works, regardless of the department.
Which is such an interesting way to frame it, because we also think sometimes, and I'm also guilty of it, I'm not maybe completely aware, maybe some of our listeners are also, is that you just think of sustainability as this external function, this other department that is going to go do some projects and, hey, I'm just doing my job, we're all just doing our job, and it's their job to make it sustainable. But that is not how it works. That makes no sense. It's your job to tell me how I can do things differently so that exactly as you said, tomorrow you're also not there, you disappear or you move on or some other person comes in that role, whatever the case may be, that my job or what I'm doing is still sustainable, that I'm doing it in a sustainable way, still meeting my objectives, but doing it in a better, more inclusive, more impactful for all the various stakeholders, not just the shareholders, not just the bottom line, as you said. So I find it, so you're really affecting the culture of the organization. I find that fascinating. Great. So we've talked about, actually, yeah, we touched on it lightly. The Formula E project we discussed, but you lightly touched on the NBA. What exactly are you doing for the NBA? Because of course the NBA doesn't have games in the EMEA region, but they have some. I mean, they have some games which happen from time to time. Of course, it's not regular. But so, are you working around the games there and how that works? Perfect. Okay, I can see you nodding along. For my audio listeners, Pierluigi is nodding along to say that yeah, that's what they confirm. Let's hear from him.
So the NBA has developed this NBA Global Games program.
Yeah,
and more and more you're going to be seeing NBA regular season games being played outside of the US. They started with Paris. I was there in last January, and it was the second edition of the games. And they will is in their plan to have more European locations and Middle East locations hosting the NBA Global Game. So the work that I've been given in terms of scope of work is really revolving around setting a strategic roadmap on how to integrate sustainability for the NBA games in this region, and then hopefully develop a set of best practices that could be upscaled and used globally wherever there is an NBA game.
Fantastic. Okay, so you're working directly with the NBA also in multiple regions. So I think, Pierluigi, we have done a really good job of, thank you, you've done a really good job of setting the context of what kind of work you're doing, who are the parties involved. Now I want to get into maybe the crux of how innovation in tech plays a role here. Because, I mean, that's always the focus for us, is that what kind of solutions can either be built or are already existing that maybe we don't know about. So for you, for when you're building strategy, are you already keeping in mind that, hey, we can use X, Y, and Z, application or solution to go in and do this piece for us, or this is something that needs to be built out, or we need to get a vendor? Like, how are you framing the strategy? Because everything will involve some sort of tech touch point, I'm sure.
It does indeed. And if you may, I'll give you an example in terms of innovation. I'll give you an example in terms of technology that I'm using myself. So my career actually is the result of this very innovative approach that was put in place by the British Standard Institution and then brought at ISO level when they developed this framework for sustainable event management, which then became an ISO standard, an ISO certification, which was part of the London Olympics legacy, and was one of the reasons also why the London Olympics won the Olympic Games, because they were not only going to deliver the sustainable games, but also develop a legacy in terms of know-how, in terms of guidance that could be used for other events, no matter the size of the events. And since then, every Olympic and Paralympic Games has to achieve ISO 221 certificate. You can check now, there are most of the major sports which work in line with this internationally recognized standard. I can mention Roland Garros, you already mentioned Formula E. There are several organizations across the world who have implemented this standard. And that it's really a very innovative approach because it's finally set a framework for the events industry on how to deliver a sustainable event, which didn't exist up until 2012 when it was first published. And now it's been recently renewed. So 2024 is the new version of this standard that is being currently in use. And on the technology side, most of the times, environmental stewardship is one of the key pillars of any sort of sustainability strategy that you put in place, right? And worthless to say that managing your carbon footprint becomes crucial. So in terms of technology, all these new monitoring and measuring tools that help organization in collecting the data, which seems to be the most difficult bit for not only what concerns scope 1 and 2, which are the emissions that you directly emit or that are coming from you plugging the and using the electric grid, but everything that revolves around your scope 3 emissions, which is everything that has got to do with your supply chain, so the procurement and the logistics and transport. How do you monitor and measure that? That's where technology steps in and gives you a big hand in terms of data collection. The data collection enables you then to have a better understanding and a clear idea what are the areas that have the major impact. When you were asking me how do you prioritize, you cannot do everything. We live in a world with finite resources, so you have to learn how to work in that kind of environment and how to manage such resources. So once I realized that logistics and travel is the main cause of my carbon footprint, guess where I'm going to start from? Yeah. So that's where technology helps you a lot. And that can facilitate, even for people that are not experts in the field, become the kind of stepping stone to get you into this kind of reality.
So if I was to put this on a maturity scale of how, or the role that technology plays, or how integral it is, it sounds like it's still at the not early stages, but like it's still at a base level. Like we're still collecting data. We're still figuring out what is the best way to gather data from multiple sources. What is the most efficient way to, because once the data's in, I think in general, we have enough tools or resources or compute power to transform it in whatever way. But the biggest gap is actually gathering the data. And that hasn't been, let's say that problem hasn't been solved. Or in your opinion, has it been solved well, or there's still a long way to go?
I would say, first of all, you get what you make. That's the mantra. And so with that mantra in mind, that's where you have to start working, as you were saying, first of all, on your data collection. The tools that are available on the market are already quite efficient. Still, you need the support from experts and consultants that can drive you through the journey, because then monitoring and measuring the emission is only the first step. Then you have to put in place an effective and robust reduction plan. And then you have to decide what to do with the non-avoidable emission. Are you going to offset them? Are you going to put in place some carbon removal strategies? And then you have to report. against it. So it's quite a journey, and there are specific tools that can cover the different areas, or there are macro tools that tend to cover the entirety of the journey. So we're still not there probably 100%, but in order, especially for the monitoring and measuring phase, in order to get started, I think the market nowadays provides the organizations with something that could be ready to use.
Good. So there are at least robust solutions out there to start. And you can start gathering the data. Then, of course, you can build out your strategy from there. So we talked about data collection. What areas do you feel where the gaps are? Like where tech and innovation, something can be built, either that you've seen quite new, that you're quite interested with, or you think is a complete blind spot in the market where, if something could come in and be built in this area, it would be really powerful.
I'm going to say something very banal that probably everyone expects me to say, which is generative. The problem is how do you apply it, right?
Yeah.
So the way I see it is that we're going to be moving quite fast from the generic ChatGPT to tailor-made generative AI system, which only tackle specific areas and specific sectors. I saw that already ChatGPT are developing something which is focused on law and legal compliance. The way I see it is that we're going to be having some kind of tailor-made generative AI, which are going to help and support organizations in tackling some specific cases. I'm going to try to give you an example where I see lots of potential. We were talking about carbon footprint. Now, let's take the NBA global games or the Formula E or the FME championships. They travel all over the world. Now, imagine if the generative AI, once I've introduced all the data, can develop for you the most optimized calendar in terms of cost reduction and emission reduction, because the two things go hand in hand. It gives me the opportunity to pre-plan, so I can buy some kits which I can ship via sea freight around the world. And whilst I'm racing in Asia, in the meantime, the ship is heading towards the US and Latin America, where it's going to be my next stop, but it's going to be, within a couple of months. So that abates completely the need for using air freight. And it helps me to optimize also my routes for road freight. That means primarily, because this is what, again, the CEOs and the CFOs want to hear from you, bringing down the costs, optimizing and streamlining these flows. And as a consequence, this also implies drastic reduction in terms of carbon emission. So you're merging economic profitability with the impact on the environment. Yeah. And that's where the technology becomes crucial, because it takes a lot to be able to define calendars. But let me be even more simple. Designing the track around where the connectors for the electric grid are, water supply, or logistics entrances for egress and egress, for minimizing the impact that also all the lorries have on the local community. And I'm going to give you a practical example. My first race of XCV was in Senegal. Lac Rose, at the finish line, the historical finish line of the Paris-Dakar. That's where the race was. But all these lorries had to go all the way in order to bring all the logistics onto the beach where the race was taking place. So what did they do to minimize this impact? They had installed logistics hub just outside from where the community was living, and all the stuff was moved over there. So the movements in the end from the logistics hub to the truck were minimized, rather than if you had to offload everything coming from the ship and send it all together with these big trucks toward these villages to get to the beach where the finish line of the Dakar was. So there are smart ways of doing all this. And again, that's where technology can step in, because you can analyze the territory and identify areas which could be used as those logistics hubs, so that it minimizes disruption on the community, carbon emissions, pollutions, etc., etc. So I see a plethora of opportunities coming merely from generative AI, with regards to track, logistics, and carbon management of the calendars.
Sounds like the planning phase, like where you would get it involved, really to outline what should be the strategy to approach something, where should different things be placed, how do we, maybe the its ability to process information on from multiple sources could be really, really valuable. Interesting one. All right, Pierluigi, we've covered quite a lot. Thank you so much for sharing everything that's been going on in the world of sustainability that you've been a part of. Let's talk about what's coming up for the next 12, 18 months or so. What do you have on your plate that you can share with us? Is there something that you can put out to the audience that they can reach out to you or maybe ask you a question or do something like this?
Yeah. Oh, well, I think really my call to action is to aligning all the events of the clients I'm working with to the best-in-class standards in terms of sustainable event management and carbon management. Both these areas are nowadays covered by ISO standards, which are recognized worldwide. So no matter the country in which you work and operate, that is a passport for trading. They call it BSI, which is the British Standard Institution that contribute to develop some of these standards, and I contribute to develop some of those. This is definitely something that it's on my agenda. So trying to guarantee to my clients the maximum level of authenticity and credibility in the way they work, because this enhances also their ESG score. So it might be able to attract more investors, sponsors that would like to align their brands with those companies' brands and work together on, again, purpose-driven initiatives, programs that could leave a long-lasting positive.
Yeah, sounds like a powerful message. Thank you for sharing that. And if somebody wants to get in touch with you, if they want to reach out, is LinkedIn or your email the best place to do that?
Yes, LinkedIn, my website has got all the details. It's the best way to get in touch with me.
Fantastic. MyStadium.net, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And of course, we will drop Pierluigi's LinkedIn profile and his website link in the notes for the show. That brings me to an end. It was a fascinating 30 minutes, Pierluigi. Thank you for taking the time to educate me and hopefully some of our listeners on what sustainability in sport really means today, what kind of work you have done, which I found fascinating going through your profile, and also where the opportunities lie going ahead. Before I let you go, though, I have one last question to ask. It is my favorite one, and I always end my pod with this one. I want to know what has been your favorite sporting moment.
If you allow me to mention two,
Of course,
I would like to mention my first race at Formula E, 2016, London Battersea Park. It was really probably the very first time where in real terms I could see that, electric vehicles could deliver the same level of excitement and competition as traditional motorsport. It was really a turning point. The world would have never been the same since then. You can have your own opinions with regards to electric vehicles or ICE. It doesn't really matter. The truth is, after these things do happen, you don't go back. And it's going to be the same for Extreme E when it moves to Extreme E. So to have vehicles which are powered by hydrogen which then become something very, very important, especially probably for the heavy-duty transport sector in the upcoming years. That also could become another turning point that I think we're going to be experiencing quite soon, because Extreme E is going to be starting 2025.
Fantastic. So you said your first one was the Formula E race that you witnessed. Was there a second one?
Yeah, let me be a bit chauvinistic. You said you're a great fan of motorsport. So to see Charles Leclerc winning Monza on a Ferrari and all the people shouting and being so excited, I mean, it moved my heart. Although, it's a different motorsport and he's a competitor of ours at the moment, working for Formula E and Extreme E. Still, I mean, the magic, the legacy, the heritage, the history, you cannot complain. Well, you cannot complain. So that was really a moment as a fan more than as a competitor.
Incredible moment. I think Fred Vasseur's line in the comms and the radio back to Charles Leclerc was Monaco and Monza in the same year. I don't think there are too many Ferrari drivers who have ever done that. I don't think there is one. I don't know if Schumacher achieved it in his time, but otherwise that's quite something.
You are in history, no matter how, no
Yes.
matter what, and that's really the beauty of it. I think it's
Incredible.
there's nothing that can pay back more than achieving these kind of things. And again, striving for excellence. That's the underlying message. No matter what you do, no matter in which sector you work, if you can do that, having that at the back of your mind, striving for excellence, trying to do more, continuous improvement, which can encompass, of course, sustainability. That's, my call to action for whoever wants to do it and wants to get started to integrate sustainability in its own way of work.
That is a great place to leave it. Thanks, Pierluigi, once again for taking the time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
That is a wrap for another episode and actually brings to end our series focused on sustainability in sport and the role that technology and innovation can play in bringing sustainability to sport. Fascinating conversation with Pierluigi. I certainly took away a lot. I hope you did, not just from this one, but from the whole series as well. Take care, guys. See you guys next week. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to the SportsTech Allstars Podcast with Rohn Malhotra. If you like our show, let us know and leave a review. And if you want to know more about us, check out sportstechx.com, where you can find our latest industry reports and updates. For a deeper dive into all things sports tech, check out our comprehensive database, SportsTech DB, at sportstechdb.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us at SportsTechX on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Join us next time for another insightful conversation with a leader in sports tech.